"It's just a silly nickname," Mom scoffed when I found out she saved me as cash cow. I closed my bank accounts that night. Months later, they begged me. I 34F recently discovered something that changed my entire perspective on my family. For years, I've been the dutiful daughter, reliable, hardworking, and always there when my parents needed financial support. My brother Alex was always the golden child, while I was treated as an afterthought. I've suspected the imbalance for years, but I never imagined Thanksgiving dinner would be the moment everything finally became clear. Growing up, the favoritism toward Alex was painfully obvious. While my parents attended every one of his little league games and school performances, they consistently missed my honor society inductions and debate competitions. I still remember the sting of scanning the audience for their faces during my valedictorian speech, only to find empty seats. They had taken Alex shopping for new soccer equipment instead. When I confronted them later, my mother simply shrugged and said, "Your brother needed us more." It became their mantra, the explanation for every inequity in our household. Their justification was always the same: "Your brother struggles more than you do, you're naturally gifted." Their words implied it was a compliment, but the message was clear: my achievements were expected and therefore unremarkable, while his mediocrity deserved celebration. By the time I turned 16, I was essentially raising myself. I took a part-time job at the local grocery store to pay for my own clothes, school supplies, and even my prom dress. Meanwhile, my parents were busy chauffeuring Alex to parties and covering his expenses. I became the default babysitter whenever they wanted a night out, forced to cancel my own plans at the last minute. "You're more responsible," they'd say, not realizing they had forced that responsibility upon me. College was where the disparity became undeniable. Despite my perfect GPA and scholarship offers, my parents refused to contribute a dime toward my education. "We can't afford to support both of you," they claimed, yet they covered Alex's tuition in full, along with his apartment, meal plan, and car. I worked 3 jobs, waitressing on weekends, tutoring between classes, and pulling night shifts at a 24-hour convenience store. I lived on ramen and coffee, pulling all-nighters to maintain my grades while earning enough to stay enrolled. Meanwhile, Alex partied through his freshman year and dropped out with no consequences. Despite everything, I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in finance. No one from my family attended the ceremony. Alex had a hangover and my parents stayed home to take care of him. I told myself it didn't matter as I accepted my diploma, but the absence of cheers when my name was called left an emptiness I couldn't ignore. My early career became my salvation. I landed a position at a prestigious financial consulting firm and moved 3 states away. The distance provided perspective, though I maintained obligatory holiday visits and weekly phone calls. When I met Daniel, whose family celebrated each other's successes and shared burdens equally, I finally understood what healthy family dynamics looked like. His parents welcomed me warmly, proudly displaying my professional headshot alongside family photos. The contrast to my own upbringing was stark and painful. My parents' financial recklessness had been evident for decades. They'd refinanced their house 3 times to fund lavish vacations and my father's classic car hobby. Despite earning good salaries, they lived perpetually beyond their means, juggling credit cards and taking out personal loans to maintain appearances. 5 years ago, the inevitable crisis hit when my father took early retirement without adequate savings, and my mother's online shopping addiction spiraled out of control. They called me in tears, facing possible foreclosure after missing 3 mortgage payments. Their credit cards were maxed out, and they had already borrowed from other family members who refused to lend more. Despite Daniel's serious concerns, I agreed to help temporarily with $500 monthly, viewing it as my filial duty. That amount gradually increased as they presented seemingly endless emergencies: medical bills, car repairs, property taxes. Within 2 years, I was sending $1,500 monthly while raising my own son, Jackson. Each time I tried to discuss financial planning or budgeting with them, they deflected or became defensive. The truth I didn't want to acknowledge was that I wasn't helping them through a temporary rough patch. I was subsidizing their fundamentally unsustainable lifestyle. What hurt most was discovering that my parents were still supporting Alex financially, despite him being perfectly capable of working. At 32, he lived in their basement, occasionally picking up bartending shifts, but mostly gaming and dating a series of girlfriends who quickly grew tired of his immaturity. When I questioned this arrangement, my mother became defensive. Your brother is finding himself, she insisted. Besides, you're doing so well, you can afford to help us. Last Thanksgiving finally exposed the truth I'd been too loyal to see. I spent days preparing a perfect meal, cleaning our home, and arranging guest rooms for my parents and Alex. Daniel took Jackson to the park that morning so I could focus on cooking. When my parents arrived, their criticism began immediately. The guest room was too impersonal. The turkey looked a bit dry. My mother rearranged my table settings while sighing about how I'd never had her eye for detail. Alex showed up 2 hours late without the dessert he'd promised to bring. Rather than apologizing, he complained about traffic and immediately commanded the television to watch football. My parents fawned over him, serving him the choicest portions while he sprawled on my sofa, dropping crumbs on the carpet I'd just steam cleaned. Not once did anyone thank me for my efforts. The revelation came from an unexpected source. Jackson, my 6-year-old son, had been playing with my mother's phone while she was in the bathroom. His innocent question silenced the room. "Mommy, why does Grandma have you saved as cash cow in her phone?" My heart stopped. The room went silent except for Alex's poorly suppressed snicker. I felt blood rush to my face as I processed what my son had just revealed. Years of suspicions crystallized in that moment. I looked at my mother, giving her the chance to explain, to deny, to claim it was some kind of joke. "It's just a silly nickname," she stammered, snatching her phone from Jackson's small hands. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably, suddenly fascinated by his mashed potatoes. "A nickname," I repeated, my voice unnaturally calm. "Is that what I am to you, a source of income?" My father's face reddened. "After everything we've done for you, you're going to make a scene over something so trivial." Everything they'd done for me? The audacity of his statement broke something inside me. 28 years of suppressed hurt and anger boiled over as I recounted every soccer game they'd missed, every achievement they'd ignored, every financial burden they'd placed on me while rescuing Alex from his self-created problems. Alex rolled his eyes. "Oh please, you're not special because you have a job. Some of us have had a harder time figuring things out. It's not like you can't afford to help out." That's when my mother said the words I'll never forget. "Well, what else would we call you? It's your duty to support us. We raised you, now you owe us." In that instant, I saw my family clearly for the first time. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an investment that had matured, a resource to be tapped, an ATM with no withdrawal limit. The room spun as 3 decades of gaslighting, manipulation, and emotional neglect fell into place like a terrible puzzle. "I think you should leave," I said quietly, my hands trembling as I gripped the edge of the table. "All of you, now." My father's face contorted in shock. "You can't be serious. It's Thanksgiving." "I'm very serious. I want you out of my house." Daniel, who had witnessed the entire exchange, stood firmly beside me. "You heard her. I'll help you gather your things." My mother burst into tears, not from remorse but from indignation. "How dare you treat us this way after all we've sacrificed for you?" They left in a flurry of slammed doors and bitter accusations. Only after their car disappeared down our street did I collapse into a chair, my body shaking with sobs while Daniel held me. Jackson stood confused in the doorway, his small face twisted with concern. "Did I do something wrong, Mommy?" I pulled him into my arms. "No, baby, you did something very right. You told the truth." That night, after putting Jackson to bed with extra stories and reassurance, I sat at my computer and canceled the automatic transfers to my parents' account. I blocked their numbers temporarily, not out of spite, but because I needed clarity without their manipulations clouding my judgment. Daniel contacted our financial advisor the next morning to review our budget and ensure my parents couldn't access any of our accounts. 3 days later, I sent them an email detailing my decision to end financial support. I listed the years of favoritism, the emotional neglect, and the one-sided financial relationship. I explained that any future relationship would need to be based on mutual respect, not monetary transactions. Their response was predictably manipulative. How could I abandon them in their time of need? Didn't I remember all they'd sacrificed for me? What kind of daughter leaves her parents destitute? I didn't respond. Their words no longer held power over me. The following weeks brought escalating pressure tactics. My parents showed up at my workplace, causing a scene in the lobby until security escorted them out. They enlisted aunts, uncles, and family friends to bombard me with guilt-tripping messages. My mother threatened that I'd never see my grandmother Rose again, the only family member who had ever truly supported me. This wasn't the first time our extended family had witnessed the disparity. During my college years at a family reunion, I'd overheard my aunt questioning my parents about why they weren't contributing to my education while paying for Alex's expenses. "She's doing fine on her own," my father had replied dismissively. "She's always been independent." The family had nodded along, accepting this framing of exploitation as a virtue, as if my self-sufficiency justified abandonment rather than resulted from it. My cousins received generous support from their parents, yet criticized me when I expressed frustration about my situation. "At least your parents let you make your own decisions," they'd say, completely missing the point. Now, the family fractured along these same established lines. My father's siblings insisted that family supports family, conveniently forgetting how my parents had failed to support me when I needed them. My uncle, who had always enabled my father's poor financial choices by lending him money, was particularly vocal. "After all they sacrificed to raise you, this is how you repay them," he texted. My mother's younger sister, however, called me privately to admit she'd always seen how unfairly I'd been treated. "You were parenting yourself while they spoiled Alex rot," she confessed. "I should have said something sooner. We all should have intervened." Alex's reaction was the most volatile. His angry calls and texts accused me of selfishness and cruelty. "They'll lose the house because of you," he raged. "Where am I supposed to live?" The irony that he, a healthy, educated, able-bodied man in his 30s, was more concerned about his living situation than finding employment was apparently lost on him. When his tirades failed to sway me, Alex's tactics shifted. He created a family group chat excluding me, where he painted himself as the concerned son trying to save our parents from their ungrateful daughter. When several relatives began to question his version of events, he abandoned that approach and tried a different angle. 2 months after Thanksgiving, he showed up at my workplace disheveled and seemingly remorseful. "I've been thinking about everything," he said, eyes downcast in practiced contrition. "Maybe I've taken advantage of Mom and Dad, and you." He asked if we could talk over lunch, his tone suggesting a breakthrough. I cautiously agreed. Any hope of genuine change evaporated 20 minutes into our conversation. After a superficial apology, he revealed his true purpose. He needed $8,000 for a business opportunity that would turn everything around. When I declined, his facade crumbled immediately. "This is why nobody actually likes you," he spat. "You think you're better than everyone because you have a job and a house. You've always been stuck up." He stormed out, leaving me to pay for the untouched meals. Next, he targeted grandmother Rose, visiting her at the assisted living facility with fabricated stories about my husband and me experiencing marital problems and financial difficulties. "She won't ask for help," he told Rose, "but she really needs support right now." His aim was transparent. He hoped Rose would offer money that he could intercept. Fortunately, Rose saw through his manipulation and alerted me immediately. I redirected my energy toward creating the loving family environment I'd never had. Jackson deserved better than to witness toxic family dynamics. Daniel and I took him camping, helped with his science projects, and cheered embarrassingly loud at his t-ball games. Most importantly, we celebrated his efforts regardless of outcome, making sure he knew his worth wasn't tied to his achievements. As for grandmother Rose, I reached out directly to her assisted living facility. The staff helped arrange private visits without my parents' knowledge. At 86, she was still sharp as a tack and immediately sensed something was wrong. When I explained the situation, she nodded knowingly. "Your mother was always jealous of you," she said, patting my hand. "Your independence threatened her. Some parents want their children to fly, others prefer to clip their wings to keep them close." 3 months after Thanksgiving, I received a terse email from my father. Without my monthly contributions, they were struggling to maintain their lifestyle. He'd been forced to return to work part-time as a consultant, something he described as humiliating at his age. My mother had started selling her designer handbags and jewelry on consignment, each sale a personal affront in her mind. Alex was still unemployed and showing no signs of helping. 6 months in, the situation deteriorated further. A mutual friend mentioned that my parents' house was in pre-foreclosure. When I expressed concern, she revealed what my parents had hidden from everyone. Alex had accumulated nearly $150,000 in gambling debts over several years, and my parents had drained their retirement accounts to bail him out multiple times. They had also taken out a second mortgage 3 years earlier, something they had never disclosed to me while pleading for monthly support. The revelation explained why my temporary financial assistance had never seemed to improve their situation. I'd been unknowingly throwing money into the black hole of Alex's addiction and my parents' enablement. The most disturbing detail was that they had known about Alex's gambling problem for nearly a decade. Instead of getting him professional help, they had shielded him from consequences, believing they could manage the situation by paying off his debts and hiding the truth from the family. My financial support hadn't been supplementing their retirement. It had been enabling a destructive cycle while they maintained the illusion of normalcy. This revelation should have angered me, but instead I felt a profound sadness. They had enabled his self-destruction while exploiting my success. Neither approach had helped him become a functional adult. By attempting to protect Alex from consequences, they'd ensured he would never develop the resilience or responsibility he needed. 1 year after the cash cow revelation, my life had transformed. I'd received a significant promotion at work, and Daniel and I had renovated our home to include a comfortable guest suite for grandmother Rose, who now lived with us full-time. Her stories about my mother's childhood helped me understand, though not excuse, the toxic patterns that had shaped our family. My parents eventually sold their house, once the pride of the family with its swimming pool and renovated kitchen, for far less than market value due to the desperate need for a quick sale. They used the proceeds to pay off Alex's most pressing debts and moved into a small apartment across town. The downsizing was more than physical. It represented a dramatic fall in social status for people who had built their identity around appearances and material possessions. Alex's reaction to this new reality revealed his true character. After 2 weeks of living with my parents in their cramped apartment, he pronounced the situation unbearable and demanded they help him get his own place. When they explained they had no more resources to give, he lashed out, accusing them of favoring me and ruining his life. The cruel irony of his accusation was apparently lost on all of them. With nowhere else to turn, Alex reluctantly took a job at a warehouse but quit after 3 weeks, claiming the manager had it out for him. He cycled through 3 more jobs with similar results. The pattern was always the same: initial enthusiasm, followed by complaints about unfair treatment, culminating in him quitting before he could be fired. In a final desperate attempt to avoid responsibility, Alex reached out to my husband's wealthy parents, spinning a tale about needing a small loan to get back on his feet. He had met them exactly twice at family gatherings, yet felt entitled to approach them for financial support. When they politely declined, he accused them of playing favorites and suggested they were only willing to help their biological family. Daniel's parents, bewildered by this entitled behavior from a virtual stranger, reported the incident to us. Last I heard, Alex was crashing on a friend's couch, still waiting for someone to rescue him from adulthood. The friend, increasingly frustrated with the one-sided arrangement, had given him 30 days to find his own place. The final confrontation came when my parents requested a meeting to discuss the future. Hoping for reconciliation, I agreed to meet them at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. I should have known better. Within minutes, it became clear their only interest was financial. They needed money for a security deposit on a better apartment. Alex was depressed and needed therapy they couldn't afford. Wouldn't I want to help my own brother? I set my terms clearly. I would consider rebuilding our relationship if they acknowledged their favoritism, apologized for the exploitation, and agreed to family counseling. Financial support would only be discussed after significant progress in therapy. My mother's face hardened. So you'll abandon your own brother when he's suffering after all we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. Name one sacrifice you made for my benefit that didn't ultimately serve you or Alex. The silence was deafening. My father finally spoke, his voice cold. If that's how you feel, we have nothing more to discuss. They chose Alex and their own pride over healing our relationship. As they walked away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had offered a path forward based on honesty and mutual respect. Their rejection confirmed I'd made the right decision in protecting myself and my son from their toxic influence. Today, my chosen family provides the love and support my biological one never could. Daniel remains my steadfast partner, Jackson is thriving in school, and grandmother Rose fills our home with wisdom and unconditional love. We've befriended neighbors and colleagues who demonstrate what healthy relationships look like, creating a community based on genuine care rather than obligation or exploitation. The family who truly loves you will never reduce you to your financial value. They'll celebrate your successes without resentment, support you through failures without judgment, and value your presence more than your provisions. I didn't learn this lesson from my parents. I learned it by becoming the parent they never were. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people who should have protected you from needing boundaries in the first place. But I've discovered something powerful in this painful journey: the ability to break generational patterns of toxicity and create something beautiful from the wreckage. My son will never know what it feels like to be valued only for what he provides. And in ensuring that, I've finally found my own worth beyond the cash cow my parents tried to reduce me to.